2Minute Video, I'm Jason Romney. We're on the Gold Coast at the annual SPA conference and we're talking to one of Australia's best known lawyers for the entertainment industry, Bryce Menzies. Bryce, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
The industry is supposed to be in crisis. What are your clients telling you? Is it tougher than ever to get a film up to date?
Look, it is tough, but it's not entirely an Australian-focused idea. I mean, the fact is that it's tough all around the world at the moment. Independent cinema is tough to finance. The Hollywood studio mechanism for financing films and releasing films is making it more and more difficult for all independents all around the world. And Australia is caught in that. Added to that, I mean, I think you've got sales agents don't need to put up money because bank finance is around. So that's meaning that there are certain films that are easier to finance than others. And Australian films aren't the easiest to finance. I mean, to give you an example, Muriel's wedding probably couldn't be financed today. Muriel's wedding was financed primarily by a distribution guarantee for an overseas sales agent. In those days, sales agents put up money, $500,000, $1 million, as a guarantee against sales. But Muriel's wedding had no stars, had no pre-sales. It wouldn't get gap finance today from a bank because because it doesn't meet the criteria. Sales agents don't need to put up finance now, so it's not in their radar to do it. They can get bank finance, but to get bank finance, you've got to have pre-sales. To get pre-sales, you've got to have stars. So it's not just, you know, we tend to look at it as an Australian problem, but it's not. It's an English problem, it's a South African problem, it's an independent American problem, it's an Australian problem, it's all around the world at the moment. It is difficult to finance independent pictures. It's magnified, in a sense, by the fact that the Hollywood system of releasing pictures has made it even more difficult to release pictures. So breakouts are harder. I mean, I heard an argument today that Muriel's wedding couldn't have broken out as well as it did in those days because the distribution system is more geared to Hollywood. Not entirely sure that's true because independent films do break out every now and then, but it is more difficult. It's certainly difficult. So that's where the crisis is in a sense. But it's not just, you know, I don't think we should look at it as just an Australian, you know, it's that old thing, you know, chips on our shoulders and stuff, as an Australian problem. It is a worldwide problem at the moment. Yes, it's true that our government is not doing anything to help on a number of levels. The FFC finance has, one would think I could talk a lot, wouldn't you? But FFC has not helped in terms of, and sorry, the government have not helped by not increasing the FFC's funding. There is no other finance available. TV is stiffed at the moment, so it is problematic. So it is quite difficult at the moment in Australia, but it's not necessarily any more difficult than any other territory at the moment.
We've heard Helen Coonan frowning on the idea of a fourth network. She's not really concentrating, it would seem, on issues like restructuring tax incentives or the free trade agreement. Have you got any thoughts on those big issues?
No, I can see the arguments for not having a fourth network. I mean, I think there are more arguments to level the playing field. The Liberals here have and I think Labor do here, in terms of level playing field, etc. It is undeniable that a show like Lost, which costs $13 million an hour, is dumped here in any other industry. But in Australia, it's considered not dumping to buy it for $50,000. You can't make Australian TV for the same price. Then has to be something to help the TV industry. Now, Australians like watching Australian TV, but there's a limit to what they'll watch. In a sense, they'll watch 5:30 because their expectations are only at a certain level. But at 8:30, their expectations have been put up so high by Lost and by Desperate Housewives, by all those things, that it's very hard to compete. So unless we can get some direct subsidy in that area, I think we're behind the eight ball. So I think TV, and TV affects everybody, because if there's no directors working in TV, there's none in features. If there's no technicians in TV, they put up their price for features. It affects everybody. In Melbourne, nobody is working. It's catastrophic in that sense, but it's TV. In terms of features, look, I don't know that the government have a handle on the tax office in that sense, and in my view, it would be advantageous to have a tax scheme for film if they're not going to give us more direct subsidy. It has to be so it's unwaterable and all that sort of stuff and blah, blah, blah. But, you know, we do need some more capital in the industry. There's no doubt we need more capital. How we do that? Well, you know, there are many ways to do it. But 10BA is not such a bad method. It's just you've got to let the tax office get off our backs.
The idea of a Screen Council's been raised, one voice for the whole industry to lobby government and funding bodies. Do you think that that's going to make a difference?
I think it's a great idea. At the moment, the industry is represented by various players within the industrial field, and that doesn't work. I've got a great deal of time for SPA, but SPA can never represent the employees because it's the employers' organisation. MIA can never represent employers because it's an employee organisation. The Directors Association can never represent producers because it's a directors' organisation. If they can get those bodies together and brand Australian films and help brand Australian films, not only in terms of marketing, but also in terms of point of view to government, I think it's a great, I mean, from a government's point of view, it make life so much easier. There's one person to talk to, and that they can deal with the horrible film politics, but they can just talk to one person and get a point of view. I think it's a great idea.
A screenwriter today is very short-sighted if they're only thinking of a feature film. They have to be thinking of the interactive game and the mobile phone content properties and, of course, the robot toy. Is that advice that you're giving right across the board, or is your primary focus still on just feature films?
Writers don't come to me and ask for advice what to write. Look, I think it's horses for courses in a sense. If you want to write long drama, then you need to be talking about TV or feature films. But I mean, I think the phone content is going to be very different content, but it still needs writers. You only have to look at computer games 15 years ago. Computer games 15 years ago were written by computer programmers, were designed by computer programs, and they were boring. Now, computer games are written by writers, the music's done by musicians, surprise, surprise. The graphics are done by graphics people. Look at the quality, they're fantastic.
Of course, the business models and the kind of contracts that you need, the way all the spoils are divvied up and all the issues that swirl around for each platform or even as much as each device are quite different, aren't they?
Correct. No, they're all
Is that
quite different.
the sort of advice that you tender now? Is it too complex for any one producer to think through?
If you were to make a television program that has a spin-off to a feature film and then has a spin-off to a computer game, inevitably you'll sell to another producer who will then do the other. So you're a rights owner rather than a producer, because each model is quite different. It's as different as theatre and TV. They are radically different. Computer programs use a bit of books, a bit of this, a bit of that in terms of their models. They all have slightly different models. And the computer industry and the computer games industry is still getting its act together. I mean, I think the computer games industry is tough bickies. I mean, you've got no ancillary rights. If you don't sell that game within 5 weeks, you're dead in the water. I mean, talk about feature films being hard. This is even worse. A game goes out, if it doesn't sell, you're dead. There's no other market. So very different models and quite different economies of scale. It's interesting. I mean, for Australia, we've got a vibrant games industry. But mostly it's working for Americans or Europeans or whatever, simply because the industry is so difficult to bring up those single titles again. I mean, I gather there's been, I think it was Wombat or one of the titles done quite well, but very rarely that a single title, the days of the Quest or whatever, those things written in the garage making millions are gone, but, there's still a hope.
Bryce Menzies, Australian entertainment lawyer, thank you very much for coming on that video today.
No worries.
Yeah.